The discovery changed everything. Commander Sarah Chen floated in the observation deck of humanity's newest research station, watching Earth spin lazily below. 3 months ago, this moment would have filled her with pride. Now, ice ran through her veins every time she looked at the stars. "Ma'am, you need to see this," called Lieutenant Torres from the communications array. His voice carried that particular strain Sarah had learned to recognize, the sound of a man trying not to panic. The intercepted signal played again on the main screen. Static filled most of it, but the translation software had caught enough. Alien words to paint a terrifying picture. Species catalog. Behavioral assessment. Military capabilities. Minimal. "How long have they been watching us?" Sarah whispered. Dr. Martinez, the station's lead xenobiologist, pulled up star charts covered in red markers. Each dot represented a detected alien probe, hidden in asteroid fields and behind moons. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. "Based on the signal decay patterns, at least 50 years, he said. "They've been studying us since before we even reached the moon." The room fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Sarah stared at the tactical display showing Earth's pathetic defenses. A handful of orbital platforms, some outdated, missile systems, and dreams of space exploration that suddenly seemed like children's toys. Another signal crackled through the speakers. This one was clearer, and the translation made everyone's blood freeze. Recommendation: immediate harvesting authorized. Resistance probability: negligible. Estimated pacification time: 72 Earth hours. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. Harvesting. They talked about 7 billion human lives like a crop ready for picking. "Get me President Morrison," she commanded, "and patch me through to every military commander on the planet. If these bastards think we're going down without a fight, they're about to learn their first lesson about humanity." As the emergency broadcasts began transmitting across Earth, Sarah caught her reflection in the observation window. Behind her own determined face, she could see the stars, beautiful, infinite, and suddenly full of enemies who had been watching, waiting, judging. The aliens had made their first mistake. They thought they knew humans. They were about to discover how wrong they were. The ships appeared at dawn over every major city on Earth. They were beautiful in a horrifying way, sleek vessels that seemed to bend light around their edges, hovering silently above humanity's greatest achievements. New York, London, Tokyo, Beijing, all shadowed by the same ominous presence. Sarah watched from the emergency command center buried deep beneath Colorado. The global defense network had been activated, but everyone knew it was barely more than a gesture. Earth's combined military might would be like throwing rocks at a hurricane. "Incoming transmission," announced Communications Officer Park. They're talking to us." The voice that filled the command center was cold, mechanical, translated by some alien technology into perfect English. "Inferior species of Sol 3. You have been selected for biological harvest. Surrender immediately and your deaths will be swift. Resistance will result in prolonged suffering." General Harrison, Earth's top military commander, stepped forward to the microphone. His weathered face showed no fear, only the quiet determination of a soldier who had faced impossible odds before. "This is General Marcus Harrison speaking for the people of Earth. Here's our answer to your generous offer." He paused, letting the weight of the moment settle on everyone listening, not just in the command center, but across the planet where billions held their breath. "Go to hell." The response was immediate. Beams of searing energy lanced down from the alien ships, targeting military installations, power plants, communication hubs. The aliens weren't trying to destroy everything. They were surgically removing humanity's ability to coordinate resistance. But they had underestimated something crucial about humans. When the centralized command structures fell, people didn't collapse into chaos. They adapted. In Detroit, a retired Marine named Jackson organized his neighborhood into a guerrilla cell, using hunting rifles and improvised explosives. In Mumbai, software engineer Priya Singh turned the city's surveillance network into an early warning system, sending alerts through hidden mesh networks. Across the globe, teachers became tacticians, mechanics became weapons manufacturers, and ordinary people became extraordinary. The first alien ground troops descended in New York's Central Park. They moved with mechanical precision, their powered armor gleaming in the morning sun. They expected to find scattered, terrified civilians. Instead, they walked into a carefully planned ambush. The attack came from every direction: rooftops, subway tunnels, sewers. Molotov cocktails exploded against alien shields while jury-rigged EMPs knocked out their communication systems. For every human who fell, 3 more seemed to take their place. By sunset, the pristine alien formation had been reduced to scattered survivors, calling desperately for extraction. The beautiful Central Park had become a graveyard of shattered alien technology and the first proof that these invaders could bleed. Sarah watched the battle reports flood in from around the world. Humanity was losing, that much was clear. But they weren't losing quietly. The aliens had wanted a harvest. Instead, they had walked into a war. 3 weeks into the invasion, the world had gone dark. Most major cities lay in ruins. The alien ships patrolled constantly, their sensors sweeping for any sign of organized resistance. Millions were dead. The global internet was down. Nations had ceased to exist as anything more than memories. But humanity refused to die quietly. Sarah crawled through the abandoned subway tunnel beneath Chicago, her breath forming clouds in the cold air. Behind her, a ragtag group of survivors followed, former soldiers, scientists, civilians who had simply refused to give up. They moved like ghosts through the bones of civilization. "Signal coming in," whispered Maya, their communication specialist. She was barely 19, a college student who had become one of Earth's most valuable assets. Her jury-rigged radio setup could punch through alien jamming, using frequencies the invaders had never encountered. The message was fragmented, transmitted in bursts to avoid detection. San Francisco holding. Improvised weapons working. Need. Coordinates for supply drop. Similar messages came from hidden resistance cells across the planet. London's survivors operated from the abandoned underground. Moscow's fighters had turned the city's extensive metro system into a fortress. In Tokyo, they moved through service tunnels like deadly shadows. "They're learning," said Colonel Roberts, studying the tactical reports. "Look at these attack patterns. Every engagement is getting more sophisticated." Sarah nodded. The aliens had expected a quick, clean conquest. Instead, they found themselves fighting 100 different wars against an enemy that adapted faster than their computers could calculate. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Kim, a former NASA engineer, had been studying pieces of captured alien technology in a makeshift laboratory beneath a destroyed hospital. "Their shields have a frequency gap," she announced, her eyes bright with discovery. "It's narrow, but it's there." They never bothered to close it because they assumed no primitive species would find it. Within hours, the information spread through the underground network. Weapons experts began modifying everything from car batteries to microwave ovens, turning household items into shield-piercing weapons. The aliens noticed the change immediately. Their casualty reports spiked. Ground missions that should have been routine mop-up operations turned into deadly encounters with humans who seemed to know exactly where to strike. But the invaders had resources humanity couldn't match. For every small victory, there were 10 defeats. The resistance was brave, clever, and utterly outgunned. Sarah stood in their latest hideout, a natural cave system in the Colorado Rockies, looking at their dwindling supplies and exhausted fighters. They had weapons that could hurt the aliens now, but not enough to matter. The enemy still controlled the skies, still had numerical superiority, still possessed technology that bordered on magic. That's when Maya picked up the transmission that changed everything. "Ma'am," she called, her voice trembling with excitement. "You're going to want to hear this. It's from space, from outside the solar system." The message was brief, transmitted in broken English with a distinctly non-human accent. "Humans of Earth, we have been watching your resistance. Your enemies are ours as well. We offer alliance. Coordinates follow." Sarah stared at the radio, her mind racing. Another alien species, enemies of their invaders, potential allies, or another threat waiting to strike once humanity had served. Its purpose, the choice would define the future of human civilization, if they lived long enough to have one. The alien ship hung in space like a crystal cathedral, its faceted hull reflecting starlight in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Sarah had never imagined she would voluntarily board an extraterrestrial vessel, but desperate times had rewritten the rules of sanity. "Remember," she whispered to her small team as their stolen shuttle approached the docking bay. "We're not here as supplicants. We're potential allies, not pets begging for scraps." The being that greeted them barely qualified as humanoid. Ambassador. Zekthari stood 7 feet tall on 4 spindly legs, with skin that shifted color like oil on water, and eyes that seemed to see into dimensions human minds couldn't grasp. "The humans who bite back," Zekthari said, its voice like wind chimes in a hurricane. "How refreshing." The briefing that followed shattered every assumption Sarah had about the invasion. The attackers weren't conquerors. They were cattle, ranchers. The Dominion harvested intelligent species across the galaxy, using their biological material to create hybrid slave soldiers. Earth was just another ranch to be cleared. "How many species have they destroyed?" Sarah asked, though she dreaded the answer. "Thousands. Perhaps tens of thousands. You are unique in your response." Zekthari showed them holographic records of other conquered worlds. Beautiful civilizations reduced to empty planets and processing centers. The Dominion was systematic, efficient, and utterly without mercy. "Most species surrender after the demonstration of superior force," the alien explained. "Some fight briefly before accepting their fate. You continue to resist despite certain defeat. This behavior is unprecedented." The Alliance offer was simple and terrible. Zekthari's people, the Wanderers, had been fighting the Dominion for millennia. They possessed advanced technology, but lacked the one thing humans had in abundance: the absolute refusal to accept defeat. "We offer weapons, tactical support, intelligence. In return, human forces serve as shock troops in operations across the galaxy. You will have your revenge, but at a cost." Sarah studied the holographic displays showing Wanderer technology. Weapons that could punch through Dominion shields like paper. Ships that moved faster than light. Medical systems that could heal wounds in minutes. The power to not just survive, but to strike back. The catch was brutal in its simplicity. The war wouldn't end with Earth's liberation. Humanity would become eternal soldiers in a galactic conflict, fighting battles on 1,000 worlds to free species they'd never heard of. "And if we refuse," Colonel Roberts asked, "then you die gloriously, and the Dominion processes your planet as scheduled. Either way, your resistance ends." Sarah closed her eyes, thinking of the millions already dead, the children hiding in ruins, the fighters bleeding in tunnels beneath dead cities. Was survival worth eternal war? Was freedom worth becoming the galaxy's weapon? She opened her eyes and met Zekthari's alien gaze. "Show us the weapons." The demonstration took place in the ship's testing bay. A single Wanderer rifle, sleek and almost organic in design, fired a beam that tore through 3 feet of Dominion armor plating like it was tissue paper. "How many can you provide?" Sarah asked. "For your entire resistance?" "Perhaps 10,000. Units to start. 10,000 weapons that could kill Dominion soldiers with a single shot. It wouldn't be enough to win the war immediately, but it would be enough to make the enemy bleed. Really bleed." As they prepared to return to Earth with the first shipment of alien weapons, Sarah caught her reflection in the shuttle's window. The woman looking back at her was harder than the officer who had first detected the Dominion's presence. War had changed her, just as it was about to change humanity itself. They had been farmers, teachers, engineers, artists. Now they would become something new, the galaxy's most dangerous species. The only question was whether they would still be human when the fighting finally ended. The first Dominion patrol to encounter humans armed with Wanderer weapons never had a chance to report back. Jackson's team hit them at dawn outside the ruins of Detroit. The alien soldiers moved in their usual formation, confident, methodical, invincible. They had grown accustomed to human weapons bouncing harmlessly off their shields. The Wanderer rifles punched through their defenses like they were made of paper. "Jesus Christ," whispered Rodriguez, staring at the smoking craters where Dominion soldiers had been standing moments before. It actually worked. Word spread through the underground network at the speed of desperate hope. The aliens could be killed, not just hurt, not just inconvenienced, killed easily, efficiently, finally. Sarah coordinated the global distribution from a hidden facility in the Montana mountains. 10,000 weapons weren't enough to arm every resistance fighter, but they were enough to create elite strike teams that could hit the enemy where it hurt most. The Dominion's response was swift and brutal. Orbital bombardments turned suspected human strongholds into glass craters. Their ground patrols tripled in size. Combat drones swarmed through the ruins, hunting for any sign of the new weapons. But humans had learned to be ghosts. Every attack was carefully planned, quickly executed, and followed by immediate dispersal. The resistance fighters struck from sewers, abandoned buildings, hidden bunkers, then vanished before the Dominion could respond. "Look at these casualty reports," General Harrison said, his weathered face showing the first genuine smile Sarah had seen in months. "We're actually winning engagements now." The psychological impact was even more important than the tactical advantage. For the first time since the invasion began, human fighters saw Dominion soldiers die and knew they could be killed. The aura of invincibility shattered, replaced by something far more dangerous: hope mixed with rage. Dr. Martinez had been studying captured Dominion equipment, and his discoveries were reshaping the entire resistance strategy. "Their technology isn't magic," he announced during a secure briefing. "It's just very advanced. But advanced doesn't mean perfect. They have weaknesses we can exploit." The breakthrough came when his team figured out how to hack Dominion communication systems. For the first time, humans could eavesdrop on alien tactical communications. "They're terrified," Maya reported, her fingers dancing across modified alien control systems. "Listen to this." The intercepted transmissions painted a picture of an occupying force in crisis. Dominion commanders were requesting reinforcements, reporting unexpected casualties, struggling to adapt to an enemy that refused to follow any recognizable military doctrine. "Harvesting schedule behind projections," one translated message read. "Human resistance exceeds all parameters. Recommend immediate deployment of additional battle groups." Sarah allowed herself a moment of savage satisfaction. The Dominion had expected to process Earth like all the other worlds, quickly, efficiently, with minimal losses. Instead, they were bleeding resources into a meat grinder that grew hungrier with every passing day. But the enemy wasn't helpless. Their reinforcements began arriving in system, massive ships that dwarfed the original invasion fleet. The Dominion was done playing with Earth. They were bringing enough firepower to crack the planet if necessary. "We need more weapons, Colonel," Roberts said, studying the tactical projections. "A lot more." Sarah nodded, but her mind was already moving beyond simple weapons procurement. The alliance with the Wanderers had given humanity a chance to fight back, but it had also opened her eyes to the larger war raging across the galaxy. "Get me Ambassador Zekthari," she ordered. "It's time to discuss expanding our partnership." The boss, Wanderer's response was immediate and chilling. "Expansion requires commitment. Are humans prepared to take this conflict beyond your world?" Sarah looked around the command center at the faces of people who had seen their planet invaded. Their families killed, their entire civilization nearly destroyed. She saw rage, determination, and something else. A hunger for justice that went beyond simple survival. "We're ready," she said. "Show us how to take the fight to them." The war was about to leave Earth behind, and humanity was about to discover what they were truly capable of when unleashed upon their enemies. The first human-crewed starship launched from the hidden asteroid base 6 months after the alliance began. Sarah watched through the view screen as Earth fell away below, a blue marble still scarred by the ongoing war but no longer alone in its defiance. The ship was a hybrid of human ingenuity and Wanderer technology, sleek alien hull wrapped around a human-designed interior that prioritized function over aesthetics. The crew of 50 represented the best of what remained of humanity's military, scientific, and tactical minds. Their destination was a Dominion processing facility 3 systems away, where the harvested remains of 17 species were being converted into biological weapons. It would be humanity's first strike beyond their home system. "Neural interface coming online," reported Lieutenant Park, the ship's communications officer. The Wanderer technology allowed direct mental connection to ship systems, turning human intuition and creativity into tactical advantages the Dominion couldn't predict. Sarah felt the ship's consciousness merge with her own. Sensors became extensions of her sight. Weapons became extensions of her will. It was intoxicating and terrifying, this marriage of human determination and alien technology. Multiple targets. On approach vector, called out Dr. Chen, now serving as tactical coordinator. 6 Dominion vessels, heavy escort configuration. The enemy ships moved in perfect formation, their AI-guided systems calculating optimal firing solutions and defensive positions. It was exactly the kind of rigid, predictable behavior humans had learned to exploit. Sarah's enhanced awareness allowed her to see the battle from impossible angles. She watched the Dominion ships adjust their shields for maximum efficiency against known Wanderer weapons. They had learned to counter their ancient enemies' tactics through thousands of years of warfare. They weren't prepared for human unpredictability. Initiate scream protocol, Sarah ordered. The ship's communication array began broadcasting on every frequency simultaneously. Human voices screaming, laughing, singing, crying, talking. Children's lullabies mixed with death metal mixed with political speeches mixed with random conversations. The cacophony overloaded Dominion communication systems, creating a wall of meaningless noise that scrambled their coordination. While the enemy ship struggled to adapt, the human vessel dove through their formation like a shark through a school of fish. Wanderer weapons fired in patterns no computer would calculate, seemingly random but guided by human intuition that saw opportunities in chaos. 3 Dominion ships died before they understood what was happening. The survivors scattered, their perfect formations abandoned as they tried to track an enemy that moved like no ship they had ever encountered. Processing facility in range, Chen reported. Minimal defenses. The Dominion had never needed to heavily defend their processing centers. Who would be insane enough to attack a facility this deep in their territory? The answer, apparently, was humanity. The processing center died in minutes, its automated systems unable to comprehend an attack that should have been impossible. As it burned, Sarah's enhanced senses detected something that made her blood freeze. There are still life signs, she whispered. Survivors in the lower levels. What they found in the facility's depths would haunt Sarah for the rest of her life. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species, barely alive, kept conscious for the harvesting process. Their bodies were being systematically stripped of biological material while their minds remained aware. The rescue operation saved less than 100 survivors, but the intelligence they provided was invaluable. The Dominion's processing network was vast but vulnerable. They had grown complacent after millennia of easy conquests. As the hybrid ship limped back toward Earth with its cargo of survivors and stolen data, Sarah realized the war had changed. Again, they weren't just fighting for Earth anymore. They were fighting for every species the Dominion had ever victimized. Incoming transmission from the Wanderer fleet, Park announced. Ambassador Zekthari wants to speak with you personally. The alien's image materialized in the command center, its shifting skin colors suggesting what might have been approval. The other rescued species wish to fight alongside humans, Zekthari announced. They offer their knowledge, their remaining ships, their lives. They call your people the ones who came back for us. Sarah looked at the tactical displays showing Dominion territory. Thousands of systems, millions of processing facilities, billions of enslaved beings waiting for rescue or death. The alliance was growing. Humanity was no longer alone in their defiance. But the enemy they faced was vast beyond imagination, and every victory came at a cost that reduced their numbers. How many ships can we build? She asked. With the combined resources of all Alliance members? Perhaps 100 vessels over the next year. 100 ships against a galactic empire. The odds were still impossible, but humanity had never been good at accepting impossible odds. Then we'd better get started, Sarah said. We have a galaxy to free. 2 years later, Sarah stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiance, watching a Dominion core world burn beneath her feet. The planet that had served as a major processing center for 3 sectors was now a monument to the cost of enslaving other species. The human-led alliance had grown beyond anything she had imagined. 47 liberated species fought alongside Earth's children, their combined fleets numbering in the thousands. Each rescued species brought new technologies, new tactics, new reasons to hate their former captors. But victory had come at a price that haunted Sarah's dreams. Earth was still free, but barely recognizable. The prolonged war had transformed humanity into something harder, more focused, more dangerous. Children grew up learning weapons maintenance. Alongside basic mathematics, art celebrated warriors and mourned the billions of dead. Peace was a word from history books. Final resistance cluster eliminated, reported Commander Jackson. The former Detroit mechanic now commanded his own battle group. The planet is ours. Sarah nodded, watching the last Dominion stronghold collapse under concentrated fire. Each victory was methodical now, efficient, ruthless. Humanity had learned to wage war on a galactic scale, and they had become very good at it. Too good, perhaps. "Ma'am," called out Dr. Martinez from the science station, "the core data files are intact. We've got processing records for this entire sector." The numbers were staggering. This single facility had processed the biological remains of over 200 species across 5,000 years. Trillions of sentient beings reduced to raw material for the Dominion's war machine. "How many more centers are there?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer would be terrible. "Conservative estimate? Several thousand. The Dominion's territory spans half the galaxy." Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the weight of command settle on her shoulders like a lead blanket. They had been fighting for 2 years and had barely scratched the surface of the enemy's infrastructure. At this rate, the war would take centuries. How many more worlds would burn? How many more children would grow up knowing only conflict? How many more species would they have to become to achieve final victory? "Incoming priority transmission," announced the communications officer. "It's from Ambassador Zek Thari." The Wanderer's image filled the main screen, its skin patterns showing deep concern. "Sarah Chen of Earth, we must speak privately." "What? I have discovered changes everything." The briefing took place in the ship's secure conference room. Zek Thari's revelation was simple and devastating. The Dominion was dying. "Their empire is vast but hollow," the alien explained. "They have consumed so many species that they are running out of viable biological material. Their reproduction rates are falling. Their technology is stagnating. In perhaps another 1,000 years, they would collapse entirely." Sarah stared at the strategic projections. The mighty Dominion, terror of the galaxy, was actually a dying civilization, desperately harvesting other species to sustain itself. "So we could just wait them out?" she asked. "In theory, yes, but they know their situation. They are planning something desperate, a final harvest that would consume every remaining free species simultaneously. Billions would die to give them another millennium of existence." The choice was brutal in its clarity. Continue the war and watch it reshape humanity into something unrecognizable, or find another way to end the threat permanently. "There is a third option," Zek Thari said quietly. "The Dominion's core systems contain the genetic templates for every species they have ever harvested. Restore those species, give them new worlds, and the Dominion's purpose disappears. They would have no choice but to adapt or face extinction naturally." Sarah understood immediately. It wasn't just about defeating the enemy. It was about healing the galaxy they had wounded, bringing back the dead, restoring what had been lost. But it would require penetrating the most heavily defended systems in Dominion space. The casualties would be enormous. Many of the species fighting alongside humanity might not survive to see the resurrection they were fighting for. "How many ships would we need?" Sarah asked. "Everything we have. And it might not be enough." Sarah looked out the view screen at the fleet arrayed around them. Thousands of vessels crewed by billions of beings who had chosen to fight rather than accept slavery. They had come so far from that first desperate resistance in Earth's tunnels. "Send word to all Alliance commanders," she said finally. "We're going to end this war, one way or another." As the orders went out across the fleet, Sarah wondered what would remain of humanity when the fighting finally stopped. They had saved Earth, liberated dozens of species, and struck fear into the hearts of galactic tyrants. But in becoming the galaxy's weapon, had they lost their souls? The final battle would determine not just the fate of the Dominion, but what kind of species humanity would become when the last shot was fired. Some prices were worth paying. Others were too high to bear. Sarah just hoped they would know the difference when the time came to choose.